Dante has been doing some research, boys, some really good research.
Yeah.
And Vishnu came for a particular purpose. And we had a big discussion some weeks ago. They had a big discussion some weeks ago about, you know, India and the dynamics of India, the race relations
and
Gandhi's punk ass. And, you know, and so Vishnu was like pushing back on how we felt about certain things, about Gandhi, about India, about racism. And I'm going to tell you, he had a list. He had a list that he read me a list. Dante read me a list of the most racist country in the fucking world. And it was fucking India.
Okay. India is the number one most racist.
One of the darkest countries.
And here is the thing, bro. India,
the most racist out of Europe.
Okay.
Against who?
Yeah, that's the thing. India, when you say a country,
number one.
What are the top 10 countries? Please, can we read the top 10
India
countries?
is also the most hated country in the world.
No, hold on. Well, you're racist. Now, listen.
But that's because
I hate
that's
your
the
country.
agenda you want.
Yeah, you're racist. Of course you're hated.
Bro, when you say India, it's like saying an entire continent of Africa and saying this continent is
It ain't going to be Africa.
That is the biggest generalization.
We just don't hate like that.
And when you say something like that, when someone said that, that itself shows the bias in their argument.
Where did you wait? Wait,
the bias in
Dante,
their
where did
argument.
you get the list from? Can we see the fucking list? Read the list.
He can
Read it!
Okay.
No,
that's
for 2020, the next one. Wait,
I got this one. This is a combination of two studies. One was asked if participants would be comfortable living with neighbors of a different race. And the second study it's combined with is a study that says if someone has ever witnessed or personally experienced racism.
Okay.
And then it says those combined, number one is India, and then Lebanon, Bahrain, Egypt, Kuwait, Philippines, Palestine, South Africa, South Korea.
And these
mainly
are the
Arabs
people.
and Indians.
But look at this way. But I also
Arabs and Indians are the worst.
But look at it this way, bro. This is what I was telling you about before. India got its independence in 1947. Until then, since 11th century, bro, can you put that other one you put in? 11th century, we have university. That's a Nalanda University. How many million? Like it was destroyed in 1197. Millions of articles of our culture were destroyed. And since then, we've been living in dark ages. And 1947 is when, so the people that you talk about, the people that you saw in Dunkin' Donuts were rich during British time. They were the traitors. As soon as British left, they were able to take their money, move here, buy motels and hotels and set up shop here.
Wait,
and you're looking at
because
them.
of the 1964 Civil Rights Act that African Americans
and
gave you.
you're looking at them and blaming an entire nation of a diverse people that speak 22 different languages.
That hate their skin color.
What are the incidents?
Can you put that back, bro?
That hate their skin color.
So look at that, bro. That was a university built in 1197, operating from 427.
What does that have to do?
But let me tell you. That is
connected, please.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
That is what happens when a culture is destroyed and pushed into dark ages. You start hating on yourself. You start hating. The racism is not just about black people. Indian caste system. We hate on each other.
Oh no! Every race does.
But let me finish.
It has intraracial fighting.
But when I hear that,
system is
but
in place
when I hear that,
per Hinduism, Hinduism created the caste system.
Well,
Hinduism created.
Okay.
It was the Brahmins, right?
Bro, I am the expert in that. Can I at least talk about?
So it is very, very sad when you hear someone confronted with reality and they try to deny it. And this gentleman right here, who is from India, is trying to make the argument and trying to convince these two brothers right here, or three people sitting at the table, that India isn't a racist country. And we've seen articles and articles and articles after articles where people are being attacked in India. Black people, Africans, Muslim, and then you have a guy like this who will sit on a podcast show and try to convince people that that's not the case. The article they are referencing, which is the article that they showed, is this article right here where it says the most racist countries in 2023. And when you read this article, it is very, very staggering and astonishing because it goes into in depth. And it says worst countries for racial equity. And when you scroll down here, it gives even more information in terms of the most racist countries in the world. And India is number one. And even with articles like this, even with information that we've seen on the net, on the web, news coverage on this, you will still have a guy like this guy who is trying to make the argument that India is not a racist place. And that is the part that is upsetting of this whole thing, is rather than say, I apologize for the racist issues in my country, we're trying to work it out. We're not perfect. Rather than, at least you would have some type of empathy and you can understand when someone is coming from that area. Now we get that it's not the entire country of India. We get that, right? But when they're saying that something is a racist place, when they're labeling something as such, it means that it is a cultural thing in that place. It doesn't mean that it's an absolute. It doesn't mean that this is everybody. We understand not every Indian is a racist person. We know this. Just like not every white person is a racist person. We know this. But the majority is what we're talking about here. The majority of the culture practices racism towards other people. And you have someone like this deny that. And that is a part that really, I think, of all of the, even worse than the fact that the study shows that India is the most racist place. For me, that is the most upsetting part, is that you're confronted with evidence and you want to still deny it. I personally have experienced this, and I'm sure many also have experienced this at the hands of Indians. I remember when I lived in New York. I remember when I took a cab. It was a cab. I took it from Harlem, and I believe I was going to Penn Station, which was on 34th Street, Penn Station. And I took a cab, and I was about to take the Amtrak. I got on this cab, which a lot of the cab drivers are Indians, Indian descent, Pakistanians, and then you have Africans too. I got on this particular cab, which was an Indian driver. And you wouldn't believe this. As soon as I got in, he was asking me to pay him before he took me to Penn Station. I was like, dude, bro, what are you talking about? How am I supposed to pay you before you take me to where I am going? That's not how this works. You drive me to where I'm going. Whatever the meter says is what I pay you. You don't ask me for money before you take me to where I'm going. And he made such a big fuss about it. He's like, I'm not taking you, bro. I'm not taking you. He went on and on. You got to pay me before I drive you. And I was so confused because at this point I was running late to catch my train and I needed to get there quickly. And here it is, this guy stereotyping me, telling me that I have to pay before he drives, which is never done. That's not how this works. You get in the cab, they drive you, whatever the meter says on the meter is what you're going to pay. So he goes on and on. And then, thank God, an NYPD police officers drove right next to it, because in the street that I lived on in Harlem and at the time, you find constant patrol officers driving back and forth. And they drove, and thank God this happened. Because as soon as they pulled up, he's like, I'm going to call the police. I'm like, please do, call the cops. So he waves to the police officers. And it says, and here's the story he tells the police officer, he doesn't want to pay me. That is the immediate thing that he says. He doesn't want to pay me. And the police officer says, what's going on? And I said, officer, I just got into this cab and I'm going to Penn Station. This guy is asking me to pay him before he drops me off at Penn Station. And the police officer looked at him and said, what are you doing? This is not his last stop. He's going to Penn Station, right? So why don't you drop him off at Penn Station? Why are you saying he hasn't paid you yet? And the police officer was so perplexed. And here you are, this guy, looking so dumb at this point, because the police officer is looking at him like, what are you doing? And so he looked at me and said, bro, you still want to get on this cab? I had to get off that cab. And as soon as I got off that cab, the police officer, this same NYPD police officer, big ups to NYPD police officers, he tells me you need to call the cab company and report him, because what he's doing is stereotyping you. And which I did. So I took the information from the of his cab and I reported it to Yellow Cab. And it's not just a one-off situation, by the way. This is something that goes on all the time. And so for this guy to sit here and say Indians are not racist, it is crazy, because I've experienced this on other things. You go to the bodega, you know, you get that type of stereotype treatment. You go to the gas station, it's the same situation. And it's just very sad. It is just very, very sad.
Talk about
What
that.
were the different
Okay.
Brahmins?
Okay, can I tell you? And he made sure there are parts in that, like if someone calls you the N-word, nothing happens in America. If someone calls you a lower caste person with your caste and says something, they will go to jail, and that's a non-bailable thing. They will stay in jail until they.
So when Indian people call
we are actually
us
working.
niggas-
We are actually making an effort. Bro, black people don't live in India.
Yes,
But-
they do. Africans, because you guys are beating the
Africans
shit out of
don't.
Africans.
And they have
That's
a
your-
huge-
no,
Bro,
Nigerians
bro,
are there,
and they have a
you guys are
huge-
beating the shit out of
That's
Africans.
right. That's right.
That was one instant that
No,
happened.
it
in
isn't.
Noida.
Oh my God.
Bro,
It's
that is what I'm
rampant.
saying. The
Oh my
African
God.
case-
It's different than anybody else.
Did this guy just say that is one incident that happened? Are you kidding me? This guy just sat there and said that it was one-off situation that happened in India where Nigerians were being attacked in India. Are you kidding me? This guy is, you can tell when someone is very dishonest. Let me take you to some articles here and you will see it. I mean, just Google anything up. And just Google just any keyword. Just Google Nigerians being attacked in India. You will find series of events over the years that has occurred. Let me show you guys. So this is YouTube, and again you can Google this. This is YouTube, right? Indians attack Nigerians. This guy is saying is one off. Look at 200 African nationals attacked after police detained Nigerians for overstaying. Right? And you can scroll down. Indian police arrest 5 men over attacks on Nigerian students. These are Indians attacking Nigeria. This is not a one-off situation. It is an ongoing thing. This is because of the aggravation that you find in India, and it's a known case where you find students from Africa, from Nigeria, that are in school in India being attacked in India by Indians for no reason. And these people are in Nigeria, by the way. You know, you don't find any of this situation in Nigeria where Indians are attacked in Nigeria. And they attack Nigerians with impunity. And this guy is saying it's a one-off situation. Let's go on Google right here. If you go to Google too, you Google anything up, Nigerians attacked in India, you will find articles. Look at the BBC right here. Right? Look at that. You'll find series of articles and articles and articles with Nigerians being attacked, students attacked at their dorms. Students attacked or burned, their dorms burned in India, and all of that. Here's another one. 60 Nigerians flee Gurugram campus after. Look, you click on it. It's an Indian newspaper, by the way. You know, the Times of India. 60 Nigerians flee Gurugram campus after thrashing. This is where, if you read this article, you'll find the constant culture in India against Africans, against blacks. So when this guy is saying that is a one-off situation, you could tell that he's so disingenuous. The same way he's denying the fact that India isn't a racist place. The article in the study says that. Right? This study says that. And then you have other countries listed here. Lebanon, Bahrain, Libya, Egypt, Philippines. See, for those of you who want to just go to the Philippines because you think that you're going to find such haven over there, here you go. Especially a lot of black folks who like to go to the Philippines. Here you go, Philippines, Kuwait, Palestine, South Africa, South Korea. Basically, Muslim countries and India are known to be racist countries. Interesting enough, you don't even see, you would think United States is listed on this thing or the United Kingdom, and we know those places are racist. We know this. But what this is saying is that of all of that, of all those countries that we all know to be racist, India is number one in terms of racism and attacks. I mean, how many times have we heard Muslims being attacked in India? How many times have we heard this? Countless times. And this guy is sitting up here denying this.
Not only that, what you're talking about, there are violence against Africans in India on a wide scale. Of course, I'm not finished. Not just one incident. Overall, in the countryside, you still have honor burnings.
Wow.
Where they are burning,
What the
you
fuck?
still have honor
See,
burnings.
this is the bullshit that
It is not
call out,
bullshit.
because
No, it's not.
It's not true.
What is honor burning?
It's because if women get raped,
Oh wow, really?
if women get
You
raped,
still splash acid in their
That's
faces.
bullshit, bro. Those
You
are the-
splash acid
Bro,
in their
are
faces.
you saying that
Not
doesn't
every
happen?
That
single
doesn't happen.
Indian, man.
What the fuck, bro? These are the things.
There's a
that,
documentary on
What?
it.
Like,
Yep.
bro,
Women in India with parts
Oh
of it. I'm
my
not saying
god, bro.
every.
It's a fucking billion people, and you take
No,
a big-
no, no.
big-
I
No,
didn't say
it's
all
it,
of
and
them.
that is the part that really I think that pisses me off, is that this guy is trying to defend the bad habits and the racist culture in his country. And then what's so bizarre is that you'll find Indians in the United States screaming discrimination and screaming that they're being persecuted and all of that, when they are the number one persecutors of people that live in their own country. These guys are in Nigeria, making a home, and Indians have been in Nigeria ever since I was a little boy. I went to school with some of them in Nigeria. I went to primary school. They've been in Nigeria for years. And not once have you heard of a situation where Indians were attacked, Indians buildings were destroyed in Nigeria, Indians were mobbed on, none of that. But we constantly hear this in India of Nigerians who are studying in India. You would think that these guys never go to anywhere else, because the false assumption is that Nigerians should go back to their country. You would think that there are no Indians in Nigeria. There's a huge population in India. As a matter of fact, of the immigrants that are in Nigeria, Indian population are the largest in Nigeria. The largest. I mean, they have over 1 billion people in their country, right? I mean, just like China, they're trying to diversify and live in other places, and they found homes in Nigeria. And here you are, this guy right here, saying that this doesn't happen. And that's the part that I think of all of this that really pisses me off. Is rather than own up to it, rather than say, you know what, it's a behavior of a few bad, or yes, it's a cultural thing, we're trying to change it, and he's making excuses for it. And I think that, if you're an African or if you're black out there, you really need to really be careful where you go and live, because most of us like to go live in areas where there are people that don't like us and love us, or have such disdain for us. And you find many of us go to live there, and we should really be careful where we live, because not all kinfolk is kinfolk. There's a huge Indian population that don't regard themselves as black, even though they're dark skinned, even though they evolved and came from Africa, even though their ancestry dates back to Africa. You will find a huge population of Indians that will tell you that they're not from Africa, or they hate Africans. And that is the part that really bothers me, is this idea of wanting to be close to whiteness as possible. Because you wouldn't find this attack against white immigrants or white experts in their own country. They wouldn't dare do it. But they'll attack other people that look like them. And even worse, they're attacking countries who they themselves live in those countries. They themselves live in those countries, and they attacked the citizens of those countries that live in India. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Because I think that as black people, we ought to be very, very careful areas that we live in. And if you're African, you really need to be careful, because there's a bullseye on us nowadays. No matter what part of the world we live in, there's a bullseye on our backs. And then you have people throwing their hands up and say, oh no, we're not doing this, even while they're clearly doing this, discriminating against us. Anyhow, let me know what your thoughts are. Please leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.